Hello and welcome to the virtual roundtable of Reading's Economic Recovery and Renewal Strategy, powered by people. My name is Paul Newman. I'm Exec Director at Activate Learning. Activate Learning is an education group of schools, colleges and apprenticeship providers that spans the Thames Valley, and one of which is Reading College. I'm also a board member of Reading UK and of the Thames Valley Berkshire LEP, and are part of their skills advisory panel. Joining me today on our panel is Francis Martin. Francis is Exec Director for Economic Growth and Neighbourhood Services at Reading Borough Council and a board member of Reading UK. Michelle Smith, Chief Exec Officer of the Education Business Partnership for West Berkshire. The EBP works with local business communities to provide young people with links to the workplace, helping them make informed choices about their future, which includes work experience, careers advice and coaching. Then we have Sue Reeves. Sue's an entrepreneur and businesswoman. Sue was previously the driving force behind Business Biscotti Network with clubs across England, and is now co-founder of Creative Locale, a growing online space for creative business. And last but not least is Sue Brackley, Economic Development Manager for Reading UK. So welcome everybody. Okay, so to my first question is for Francis. Francis, from a Reading Borough Council perspective, what are the issues facing Reading that we are seeking to address through the inclusive Reading objectives within the recovery and renewal strategy?
Well, I think people usually think of Reading as a wealthy town, and by many conventional economic indicators it is, but these mask some stark inequalities of wealth and opportunity which lots of people face in the town. And some of these have been exposed and made worse by the pandemic with redundancies, job losses, in sectors which were already vulnerable to the changes we were seeing on the high street. In the last 12 months, it's taken its toll. So I think that the inclusive Reading objective is really about recognising this. As we recover, we must do so in a way which really addresses the inequalities, rather than settling for a return to normal. Normal wasn't great for everybody in Reading, so we need to make sure that we do better where we can. For example, young people in many ways have been the least affected by the virus, but they've been most affected by its economic impacts. So we really want to improve the skills and job prospects going forward in areas like digital or green technology, where we think that many of the jobs in the future and the COVID recovery activity will focus. So I think we've played our part in the last 12 months, distributing financial help and others and getting support out as quickly as possible. And we really want to work with our partners in Reading and the business community, skills and training providers, so that we can bounce back quickly and make sure that everybody benefits from the recovery.
Thanks very much, Francis. My next question is on to Michelle. Michelle, how are young people most effective and how can we support them?
Thanks very much, Paul. I mean, there's so much evidence that the pandemic has had a massive effect and a disproportionate effect really on our young people, not only through the disruption to their schooling and the fact the sort of switch to homeschooling and all the challenges that that's brought, but they've also been isolated from their friends and peer groups through all the necessary restrictions that we've all been living under. And there's a growing body of evidence about the high anxiety levels and impacts on young people's mental health that's come as a consequence of that.
Thank you. That's really, really interesting. My next question is to Sue Reeves. What part do employers and self-employed have to play in delivering the strategy?
Morning, Paul. Small businesses are actually critical and essential parts of the economy, and sometimes they get overlooked, particularly those small micro businesses who probably are beavering away at home, but they create great wealth opportunity. A lot of them employ people, sometimes part-time, but you get small micro businesses who are employing up to 5, 8, 10 people. So they're really valuable to the local economy. And what a lot of people do forget is that these smaller businesses tend to recruit from the local economy. So they'll bring in people who are living within a 10-mile radius, particularly of their business.
Thank you. And I think that's really important, that local community impact, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do is drive local spend back into the local community. We're always trying to encourage local people to buy and support the local small businesses, whether that's buying, stationery or buying local produce from the retailers, and just trying to keep that pound valuable within the local economy.
Thanks, Sue. That's really great. My next question is to the other Sue Brackley. Sue, what programme of activity do we have to deliver our inclusive Reading strategy?
Thanks, Paul. Well, we've been working on developing a recovery strategy, believe it or not, since last summer. And of course, with the lockdowns happening, it's been pushed back and then pushed back again. And we're really hoping this time with the unlocking programme that the government has, that we can start moving forward, working with partners like Michelle and Sue Reeves, who are on this call, to deliver the kinds of interventions that will have local impacts and have quite quick local impacts. So the kinds of things we're looking at will be working with some of our secondary schools, working to make sure that youngsters, and as Michelle said, a lot of those young people are feeling very isolated, and there's a real concern, I think, nationally, that some of them may feel adrift and left behind. So we're working to make sure that, the right careers advice, the right training options are available, and also looking to, giving them some life skills as well. So preparing them for the world of work and getting those introductions going with employers of all sizes. And as Sue Reeves said, the really important thing is, I think, that small businesses are on board with this, because they are so vital to what's happening in our local neighbourhoods. So we're doing some work around building up those business networks locally. There's quite a lot of work going on with developing those, which is exciting, because I think that's a little bit new. And I think what we're trying to do is to keep that groundswell of support for local businesses that lockdown has created, and we're trying to keep that going. So building up the momentum to keep people shopping locally. And it's part of, I think, what nationally is gaining a bit of traction as that 20-minute village idea. So everyone can walk or drive easily to all of the services that they need locally. So there's a lot going on: small business support, education support, also obviously looking at training and skills agendas, working with people like Activate Learning, your own company. Really, so we've got a real tool belt, and that nicely links into our toolkit idea that we've launched. But we've got a little tool belt of different options that are there for different levels of people, whether you're over 50, wanting to retrain, or whether you're a youngster who's just really starting to find their way into a career.
I think that's really important, isn't it? That we're mindful of the implications of what's being widely termed as the sort of scarred generation of young people coming out of schools for the first time and colleges without real clarity about the options that are available to them. We're starting to see, certainly through our networks, young people really quite worried about their future, where I think up until recently it's been taken for granted that things would be okay and things will work out. And I don't know whether you're seeing any of that through the work you're doing with young people, but I found that really quite a stark contrast from, certainly re-emerging from lockdown, meeting the students really loving being back in education, which is great, but also real worries about the future.
I think that's absolutely right, Paul. We're seeing exactly the same thing. And I think there's almost been a big pause, if you like, with just the sort of curriculum content carrying on, with the great work schools and colleges have been doing to facilitate remote learning, and the access they've tried to build for all young people with all the laptop schemes, and because those challenges around the technology and physically being able to access live learning from home, etc. But now that thankfully the students are back, and they're all back, and they've got that structure back from school or college or wherever they're based, I feel as if we've all got a real collective responsibility and a bit of an opportunity in the coming months to essentially get hold of those young people and give them that guidance that actually the world has kept turning, and that there are sectors, especially in the Reading area. I think we're really blessed to be based here in the sense of the technology sectors and the high-tech sectors where those opportunities absolutely still exist. And actually, you know, almost ironically, some of those sectors have experienced enormous growth through the pandemic. And it's really about, I think, getting hold of young people and getting them to realise and grow their confidence in the fact that they possess the skills and strengths that employers locally are looking for. And it's about joining those dots and making those connections. And really, whether it's through virtual experiences for the time being, we've done a lot of work over the last 6 to 9 months to re-engineer everything to be able to deliver it virtually, to make sure that we're able to showcase relevant local opportunities to young people so that they get a representative view of the opportunities that are available in their local area, to really build their confidence and give them that positive focus back that the future is still there and they can, you know, make those confident decisions about next steps and pathways and kind of control that, rather than feeling as if the whole world has stopped or turned on its head and that those opportunities aren't there.
I think that's a really, really important point, Michelle, that we do need to keep those connections with employers and futures, because I'm sure it's written in a song once, they are our future, aren't they, these young people? I won't do the next line, but it's so important that they can see those connections and those opportunities. Sue, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I just want to come in because I think there's a missed opportunity with the smaller businesses. I think we very often think about placing younger people with the bigger companies for apprenticeships and training and, you know, Kickstart and all the rest of it. But there's a whole raft of smaller SMEs who could easily take on apprentices. And also, I think those small businesses don't necessarily know how and where to access that help as well. So I think there's a whole piece around educating the local businesses where to get access, but also within the schools and the education system to maybe educate our younger people that there are opportunities, great opportunities in some of these smaller companies, you know, where they can accelerate their learning and their future careers.
And just a fuller, more rounded experience as well.
Absolutely, because they can be a lot closer to the end product or the customers than perhaps they might be in a bigger company where they're just part of a smaller part of a big cog. Yeah. The other issue that I see coming down the line is the over 50s, because those people who have actually been made redundant or are leaving the bigger companies tend to be the older people, over 50s, over 55s, and they've still got another 10, 12, 15 years of employment ahead of them.
Absolutely, and I think that links so well into our inclusive strategy that we're working on here, that Sue's very well, the other Sue, sorry, has described what's going on. Well, but thank you, Sue. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Paul, how significant is the Reading strategy to the wider recovery of the Berkshire economy?
Well, I think it's essential. I mean, Reading is widely known as the capital of Berkshire, and we do have a track record for bouncing back. We're very highly rated in regard to good growth for cities indexes. And clearly within Berkshire, we're all facing very similar issues. I think it's very important to the Powered by People strategy that it dovetails and supports the work of the wider Thames Valley Berkshire-led recovery strategy, which it does especially around the importance of delivering skills and training and employment support to the local labour workforce.
Well, I suppose, Paul, just looking at what is happening with Activate in terms of, because UTC is part of the Activate family, isn't it? And I think, don't you think going forward that what's happening with UTC and the kind of switch that we're seeing at Reading College in terms of some of the delivery you're doing, I think that's going to be so crucial going forward. You know, you're far more into your tech and your creative agendas now, but also UTC is there actually shaping young people into the very careers that we're going to need going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're very proud to be involved with UTCs across the south as part of our Activate Learning Education Trust. And yes, absolutely, UTCs offer a very unique experience at compulsory school age and post-16 around a connection between employment and learning, developing skills and knowledge and insights hand in glove with industry, to create that pipeline of talent and potentially people that are interested in those sectors to look to gain employment into. As you said, also within Activate Learning, we've done an enormous amount of work working with our local enterprise partnerships to build a framework of skills-based vocational qualifications that closely mirror the employment needs in the area. So we've managed to gain some significant investment to develop, caring and health facilities and science and pharmaceutical facilities, because we know that those are very, very high on the list of priorities for Reading and for the wider Berkshire. We're also very, very pleased and proud to be launching an Institute of Technology in Digital Skills actually in Reading for September 2021. Building work starts on creating a series of specialist spaces that very closely mirror the world of work and create opportunities for students with employers to study relevant skills in the digital sector around cybersecurity and programming and those areas that are high demand where we are now. So it's a real exciting time, and it's how we try to link young people's aspirations to the real job market, because we really don't necessarily need young people of Reading to travel outside of Reading to find great opportunities. They exist around us. So connecting up the dots, as you say, Michelle, is so important. So that's an exciting opportunity and something we need to continue to work on and keep getting those messages out that Reading is a place to come, not only for your business, but also for talent for business. And if we can link those two, then I think that our reputation for bouncing back will be even stronger.
Yeah, for sure.
I completely agree. And I think there's a big piece in that as well around helping young people to see that in a lot of cases they possess a lot of the skills and strengths that map so directly onto those opportunities as well, and making them feel included and that those opportunities are accessible and that they are exactly the sorts of people that employers are looking for, and make
Absolutely.
it is a job role or a career path that's relevant for them, and that it's not one that they should rule themselves out of.
I think you're absolutely right, Michelle. And what we found in working more closely with employers are the things that are really important to employers are the things that don't necessarily sit inside a qualification. They're about personality, they're about attitudes, they're about curiosity, they're about pride in your work, they're about working together, wanting to solve problems, being part of a team. And as far as I can remember, we don't have any qualifications with that written on at all, but it applies everywhere. It applies absolutely to everything we do. And so it's about how we raise aspirations of young people who may not be have engaged in school in the right way, or not in the right way, but in a way that is conducive with great outcomes in terms of GCSE results. They still have lots to offer employers, because we all have a yin and yang inside us, and whilst you might not be great at perhaps some of the academic work, there's probably a very high likelihood that you'll have great practical skills and good problem-solving skills, or great people skills that don't necessarily translate through a written examination. So it's about how we get those messages out there that there is absolutely opportunities for everybody.
I think that ties in. Sorry, Michelle. I was going to say, I think that ties in really well with the way we're working now, where more and more people are becoming self-employed. And I think, the job market I entered into, which was, basically you expected a job for life. It's very different now, isn't it? And self-employment. And I suppose I'm looking at Sue Reeves when I'm saying this, but I think that, people are ready to switch and self-employment, contract work.
Yeah,
You know, working for
absolutely.
themselves is so much more important now, I think.
Yeah, and I think also that people's ideas of setting up a business are slightly different. It's interesting. I've talked to a couple of younger people recently, and what they've said to me is that their raison d'etre for their business is probably not as profit motivated. So one of the key things, the key drivers for them is philanthropy and environmental issues, green issues going forward. So obviously they're in it to drive and build a business and take on people and grow. But at the heart of it is a mission to do something and give something back, whether that's to the local economy or to the world. And that's an underlying thing that I think is going to come through quite strongly over the next 5 years.
Social value is a huge part of the motivational force for young people going into the gig economy as well. And it's about the challenges for employers is about how they think about a new way of the new sort of psychological contract of employment. It's not just about in our day you get a job, you work your way up. There's a sense of really feeling that not only the individual but the company is adding social value. The social capital is very, very important to young employees these days. And
totally agree.
We need to work together with businesses to think about that, because they will turn on their heels and go somewhere else if they feel that their values are not taken into consideration or don't align with that organisation.
I totally agree, and I think there's an opportunity for employers to almost shift the focus away from the particular job role onto the difference that role within the organisation and the mission of the organisation makes to wider society. Because you reflect back on the last year and wonder where on earth we'd be without the scientific and technological advancements that have meant that, thank goodness, there's been there is a route through the situation. And I think, as I say, I think there needs to be a shift from employers to help attract young people or people generally into the sectors and organisations to be focusing more on the difference that the technology or the science or whatever it is they're working on makes to essentially the end customer, whoever that might be. Because there's a definite groundswell. I totally agree with both Paul and Sue Reeves there, that there's a real groundswell of that being the driver as to why people are looking for, or what they're looking for from their careers and job roles. And I think it's a big reason why we're seeing so much growth in self-employment, so that you can be a bit of a master of your own destiny and have that input in terms of the reason the company and or organisation exists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree, Michelle.
And
Yeah.
I think it's also something, Sue Reeves, to bear in mind when we're thinking about adults and the adult market. It has changed, and so it's about creating an opportunity for those people who, as you say, have tons and tons of life experience and skills to add to a company or to an organisation or a business, but perhaps need to think about how they might describe themselves and how they might align in a modern way, rather than perhaps when they first entered the marketplace, as some of us have so many years ago. It's a different environment now, and there's a need just to kind of reframe their thinking in order for them to be successful again.
That's a really good point, Paul. Yeah, it's almost like a reskilling on how to actually present yourself in front of an employer, isn't it? Whether you're young or older. But I totally agree with you. I hadn't thought about that in terms of the older, the over 50s in terms of repositioning. I think that's really valid.
It's actually quite exciting, isn't it? Because I think we're talking about work being a very different, more fluid thing that fits into lifestyle better, and people have got more choice. Hopefully, whatever age you are, you're going to be able to adapt into that. But I think potentially we're talking about a far more interesting working world as we go forward. I
agree.
Your choices are more, and your values are more valued.
I think
it's quite exciting.
What we've seen certainly within Activate is a real opportunity to do a couple of things. One is to create that flexible working environment for our staff to work in a blended way, working from home and coming onto campus. Obviously, we've had to do it as part of the lockdown, but we found, you know, there's been some real innovations and some things that we really want to keep. And a lot of young people like studying some of the subjects that they find really challenging remotely, because it provides a safer environment for them to fail in than if they were doing that in a class with their peers. You know, getting it wrong at home on your computer is far less intimidating than in your classmates where you might be feeling slightly more anxious about that. So in terms of creating the right emotional conditions for learning, it's worked very well there. What it has meant is that when we bring students back onto campus, we really do need to focus on their emotional engagement and their emotional well-being, because they need to connect. We're all social beings and social creatures. So it's kind of making us really rethink what our campuses do, and how we engage with students when they come on to, you know, back with us, or when they are with us, and what we might do remotely. So it's kind of, there's a whole kind of sea change of kind of pedagogical thinking about what does this look like. So
yeah, there's a whole piece around blended learning with regards to well-being and skills learning as well. You know, if you think about the whole mental health, anxiety, stress issues right across the generations, but you bring that together with structured learning and skills infill, you know, you've got a really different training piece to deliver, haven't you?
Absolutely. It's a real challenge, and I think one that through the work that we're doing with Reading UK is something that needs to be a cornerstone in this work stream. Well, I'm afraid that we're running out of time now, so I would just like to say a huge thank you to our panelists today, and just for those people watching, just to let you know that this roundtable video forms a suite of roundtables which can be found on the Reading UK's Recovery Hub, and there'll be a link to the toolkit as well that Sue's referred to, which will give you all the information and guidance to direct you to the information that you might need. So I would just like to say a huge thank you. It's been great spending some time talking to you, and I hope you will stay safe and well, and hopefully we'll get to meet in person again soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.